Hello, hello. We are going live with Dr. Marie Tuin, the founder of Love Insight Dating. And Marie holds a PhD in East-West psychology from the California Institute of Integral Studies, and her dissertation was on the experience of empathetic joy, otherwise known as compersion, in intimate relationships. And today we're going to be talking about social awkwardness. So I'm going to bring Marie on now. We go. Hello.
Hi.
Good to have you back. It's been a minute.
No, it's so good to be here. I love our conversations.
Me too. Always, always. And I've been fortunate to get to see you kind of backstage at some of our Hum Hum events. Marie has been doing coaching with us now for several months, and it's been so amazing to have you share your work with us. So,
Uh,
I gave a little background on your bio, but I'd love if you actually can just start off with what you've created with Love Insight Dating and the type of coaching that you offer.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, Love Insight Dating is my baby. It's my coaching practice. And what I do is I help people just deal with different aspects of relationships. It can be at, like just the dating level, like I'm single and I need help getting out there and figuring out what I want and figuring out how to get more of what I want. It can be at the relationship level, like people are already in a relationship and they need help just navigating the complexity of being in an intimate relationship with someone. And then it can be just like friendships and, like kind of coming to our topic, like social awkwardness, like how do you create more of an ecosystem of connection in your life?
Mm,
So just really like how to have more love in our lives. That's what I
yes.
do. I help people just create more love-filled lives.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. And yeah, you can just feel it. Like it's very, I feel that in your energy, Marie.
Takes one to
So,
know one.
yeah. There we are, friends. It's all you ever need. Just compliment each other all day. Life is good. It's true. Just affirm each other's awesomeness, and then that's really it.
I mean, it really helps us feel seen and
Mm,
valued, and like when it's real too, like it doesn't, like sometimes we think like, oh, compliments, like, oh, you're just like flattering me, but when we actually dare to talk about how we feel and the beauty and the light that we see in somebody else, it can dissolve so much fear that's
mm,
just, kind of always there, like, oh, is this person on my side? Are they on my team? Are they gonna hurt me? And
mm.
like communication from the heart can help dissolve so much of that.
So true. It's really beautiful. So, as we talk about seeing each other's, beautiful qualities, let's talk about this topic of social awkwardness and how would you capture what the essence of that is? I remember when you and I were talking about like even broaching this topic, you're like, oh, I'm the mess. Like this is my jam. Like I love social awkwardness. So talk to me about like what role it's played in your own life first, and then how you would even define that.
Totally. Yeah, I am a self-proclaimed expert.
The master of social awkwardness.
I was the most socially awkward person you could imagine.
Hmm.
When I was like, if you saw me at like 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, I was so awkward. And that was because I had a lot of experiences of rejection.
Hmm.
Like in my peer group, I just had been just cast as the weirdo, as the outcast, as the, like the one that didn't belong.
Hmm.
And so that created so much fear in me and so much anger in me that I didn't know where and how to express in a healthy way. So what happened is I just kind of turned more like inward and became very awkward and kind of really turned my back on people.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
So
yeah.
would you say that like I guess if we were to really break down, like, what does it mean to be socially awkward? Because so one thing that I'm hearing you say is like kind of a closing off from maybe interacting with the world. How else can
Mhm.
we like capture the essence of this awkwardness?
I mean, I look at it as like a combination of fear,
Hmm.
shame, and anger.
Wow. Huh. Yeah. And I guess there are probably different flavors of awkwardness. Like maybe for some, it's like more explicitly awkward, and others, they're just more, you keep more to yourself, and therefore that in and of itself is kind of a bit awkward. And
Yeah, I think that there's different degrees of it. You know, like I think that we all have a degree of it. Like I still have a degree of it, of
oh, yeah,
course.
same.
And, you know, like the difference now is okay, it's not controlling my life anymore. It's not preventing me from connecting with people. And
Mm,
I'm still working on it. I'm still working on, you know, like my fear and my anger and my shame. You know, like there's still some left there at some level, but it's no longer the master.
that's a beautiful way to put it. What do you think? I guess I feel like also as I think about the word and like the qualities of it, there's also like an insecure quality. Like I'm imagining the person who's like constantly self-deprecating is like one flavor of it too, where they almost like call their own things out that they're so heightened aware, they're so aware of, but like other people aren't doing that. Like I feel like that was my flavor. That's why I'm talking about it, because I'm like, I know that one. I used to be like very self-deprecating, and I would call myself out on things that like nobody else was probably thinking about, but because I was feeling so insecure. So I'm curious,
Mhm.
like other ways that you see it, whether you hear about it with clients and how they talk about what shows up as awkwardness.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically like an expectation that other people are not going to find me good enough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's
And that, you know, like that can definitely have the flavor of like, okay, like, yeah, underneath the scenes, you're basically telling yourself, I'm not good enough.
Yeah, really. So, social awkwardness is a symptom of lack of comfort in one's own skin with oneself, ultimately,
Mhm.
or fear of like we're somehow rejecting ourselves in some way.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Self-rejection.
yeah. Self-rejection. And then that gets projected outwards almost to like reject ourselves before we can be rejected by other people. So it expresses as this awkwardness.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a protection mechanism.
Yeah,
Ultimately. It's
yeah.
like kind of already putting up that wall of separation that says like, hey, you're probably not gonna like me, you're probably not gonna love me. I'm just gonna have this kind of like underlying feeling of awkwardness so that I feel a little bit more protected or just
Mm.
like anticipate. It's a little bit like if you're getting ready to be, you know, punched in the face, you're gonna be like,
Right. You're bracing yourself from the outside, like
Mhm.
leading from the inside. So the reason you and I even like thought to talk about this was because we've both been hearing from people that work within our communities and clients, etc., about just feeling uncomfortable or a little apprehensive, maybe is a better word, about reintegrating with the social world again in person after having
Mhm.
spent over a year really isolating and only engaging virtually, to the point where people like can't see the back of your head, and now you have to make sure the back of your head looks decent and like all that. I mean, small things, but
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about like how you're working with clients to take care of themselves as they move from socializing more virtually into socializing in person, and like what you're noticing come up for people?
Yeah,
Mm.
sure. I mean, it's very different. Of course, being online, it provides a level of protection already. Like
Yes.
the potential rejection from someone online, I mean, it's still there. There can still be awkwardness and fear, but it's not as prominent. It's not as
Mm.
physical. It's not as in your face. So, I mean, since of course, like we kind of put the finger on the fact that there's a lot level of self-rejection at the core of social awkwardness, like self-care practices can be one of the first fundamental things to prepare yourself for going back out there and having interactions with people in person. So
Mm.
making sure that you're really taking care of your body. And that's a
Mm.
big one. I usually talk to my clients like right away, you know, when I start coaching about like, okay, how are you taking care of yourself? What are you eating? Are you exercising? Are you outside in nature? Like, are you doing the things that your body needs for you to feel comfortable just on the planet?
Yeah, I think that is such an overlooked critical point, that actually comfort starts from within, and that the more comfortable we are in our skin and are taking care of ourselves, then as we go out, of course we'll still meet just the newness, the change, but
Mhm.
at least we're doing whatever we can to take care of ourselves.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So kind of being our own best friend. I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but it's such a powerful concept. Like when I really clicked and decided to become my own friend, I started treating myself better. I started
Mm,
treating myself like I was worthy of love and I was worthy of care. So that just already dissolved a lot of my anger that I had towards the
mm,
world and feeling like, well, other people are not loving me and taking care of me and I'm not safe in this reality. But once I
mm.
decided to become my own caretaker and decide, like, okay, I'm worth it, I'm going to take care of myself, I'm going to be my own friend, then already a level of that discomfort can just release and
That's
evaporate,
beautiful.
start to lessen in intensity.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think that's such an important point. I very clearly remember a moment, like in my own um, self process, where I realized how there were certain things I was willing to do if another person was involved in the plan or for
Mhm.
another person, but I wouldn't just do it for myself. And then, like, once that shifted, I was like, of course I'll do this for myself. Like, why do I have to wait for another person to be in the plan or in the in the field to take care of myself in this way? Like if I'm, craving a really elaborate dinner, I'm going to cook it and I'm going to make it for
Mhm.
myself because I'm worth it and that's fun. And, that's like a small example. But I think that you bring up an important point of just like noticing the ways that you won't give to yourself, or like where you may be holding back energy from really investing in your own desires, needs, wants, hopes,
Mhm.
dreams,
Right.
as subtle as they are or as big as they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that opens the door to actually like feeling like you can invest in people.
Yeah. And that you actually allow others to invest in you. Because I think that's another thing too, is like the willingness to even receive. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the same channel, like giving and
It's,
receiving. It's really like it's the same tube. So if you can't receive, then it's harder to give, and also if you can't really give, then it's harder to receive. Like I feel like
mm,
both have to be done in parallel.
yeah.
So the other half of the equation of what I, have come to realize and what I teach my client now is invest in people. Like just
Yeah.
do it. You
Oh,
know, that doesn't mean you
yeah.
don't invest in yourself. You have to do both.
Yeah.
But it starts with a mental decision of like, okay, even though I know that the world is not always nice and people are not always nice, I'm
Mm.
gonna put myself in the narrative of being a giver rather than being a beggar.
Ooh, that's really good. I like that.
Like, I trust that I
Yeah.
have something to give and I'm gonna give it anyways. Like, that's gonna be my mission in life to
Mm.
actually give love and share my heart and to become kind of obsessed with it. Like, to me, that was the crux of a lot of my healing and a lot of my transformation is to just have that very clear decision and look for ways, look for people like, okay, how can I bring value to their life?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like self or social awkwardness is like an inversion of your attention, where you're putting too much emphasis on worrying, will I be received? Will I be liked? And
Mm-hmm.
this isn't a criticism. It's more of like, can you shift the attention to be, well, what can I offer? And then you start to actually realize that like your own essence, your own presence, your own beingness is of immense value. Like that is the gift. Like just your presence is a true gift, because most people aren't even willing to give you that. Like, are your feet facing forward when you're talking to someone? Are you making the eye contact? Like, are you fully in the conversation? Are you in the room? And like
Mm-hmm.
that's such a beautiful gift. I was listening actually yesterday to Charles Eisenstein's Secret Economics, and I
Oh,
haven't
I love
finished
that.
the book. Yeah, but he talks about how in a lot of different languages, I believe it's the word for like give and receive or something like this. It's like actually the same word. Like there weren't two different words to describe the phenomenon. So that flow of energy really is almost very circular. It's interesting that
Yeah,
it's coming up here.
exactly. Because also when you think about it, like when you're in the action of giving love, like I'm giving you a gift, I'm giving you attention, I'm listening to you, I'm understanding you, then I am in a state of love.
Mm.
And isn't that what we all want?
Exactly. And I think that's the thing is like when we can connect to those qualities of heart and of mind that are intrinsic, that naturally fill us up, that feel good, like generosity
Hmm.
and gratitude and our capacity to be present, um, compassion, like that is its own reward and it's so nourishing. So, like, if you can use every single moment that you are aware to practice cultivating those things, then it's like never a waste of your time because you
Hmm.
will feel good. Like it
Yeah.
feels good to be generous. It really does. And I think we can get in our own way with it out of fear, out of
Mhm.
scarcity, or out of, whatever narratives we have running about why we shouldn't give something.
Exactly, exactly. And also, like when we start thinking about the fact that everyone is awkward and everyone just wants to be loved and
Mm,
everyone has protection mechanisms to just, like shield themselves from rejection, then we start understanding like, okay, like everyone actually really needs my gift. And if
yeah.
they reject me, if they're not nice to me, if they're not receptive, it is from their own pain. It's not because my gift is not good.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that understanding just really brings more empathy with then, which brings more connection and enables
Mm.
that process. So it's really important to understand also where other people are coming from.
True. Yeah. And I think, as we can connect to our own like discomfort or social awkwardness, then once we can work with that too, it gives us a chance to have more compassion and show up to support other people. And like I think that's, it always starts with us. So it's like maybe what are some ways that people can notice if that awkwardness or let's call it even just contraction or inversion is beginning to arise in an experience because right you're never just like oh I am socially awkward. It's like it will come up in your experience or now you have a moment of feeling socially
Mhm.
awkward. So like what can people do to identify it in their own experience?
Mm. I mean, you can observe your body, first of all. You can observe, like, okay, am I being really tense in my body right now as I'm speaking and engaging with that person, or if I'm thinking about engaging with that person? You can
Hmm.
observe your thoughts. Like, sometimes, even to this day, like, I'll have, like a date with someone, or I'll have, like a social engagement, and I'll see myself thinking, like, oh, I hope they're going to cancel.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, wait a second, like I want to connect. Like
Yeah.
there's some of those thoughts that just come from that fear of, being exposed, being vulnerable, and it's just like the fearful automatic part of me that's up and telling me like, oh, I just would rather stay in my room and not talk to anyone.
This is such a good point. I think a lot of people will leap to call themselves lazy when in actuality they're protecting themselves. It's like you're not lazy if you hope that your plans get canceled and want to stay in your room. You're just leaning into what feels comfortable and familiar instead of like doing the thing that ultimately will fill you up, but is a little bit scary.
Yeah. And then
True.
pretty much like 100% of the time, okay, like nobody cancels. I go do that thing with that person and I feel, so full of love and I am so glad it happened. So also
Yeah.
kind of remembering like, okay, this is my pattern. I don't have to take that voice seriously
Mm,
when
mm-hmm.
it comes up, when it's like, oh, like people don't like me. I'm gonna, experience pain, blah, 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 blah. Like I don't have to take every voice in my head so seriously.
So true. You know, the other thing it's making me think of is like pre-pandemic for those of us that were like overly social, like like overbooked, you know, like where we didn't set very good boundaries for self-care and kind of scheduled the crap out of our dams, again, speaking about myself, and just like,
Definitely.
and
Yeah.
just like back to back to back, like jam it all in just because I can. And like I, love connecting with people, but also I'm like, hey, wait, hold on, pause.
Mhm.
Almost like seeing the time in isolation or in quarantine as an opportunity to like recharge, refill, our cup, and then being like, oh, I just want to make sure that I don't go back to that level of like
Mm,
intensity. And I think it's like, you know, on one hand, not to fall into the trap of staying comfortable, but simultaneously, like, what did I learn from that time? And like, how can I better self honor? How can I set boundaries? How can I not overschedule myself, but also not be a complete hermit and like deny myself of like enjoyable social interaction.
yeah, exactly. Like boundaries are so important. Like to feel
Yeah.
like you're actually at the reign of your life and you're, exercising your agency and you're actually like spending the time that you have in the best possible way, in the way that makes you happy.
Mm,
So
yeah.
that's really important, and that's another part of my coaching is just kind of helping people feel like, okay, I'm not just like,
Mm,
again, like being a giver versus a beggar. Like if you're a beggar, then you're just going to run towards whoever has like a little bit of connection or love or attention to offer to you, but you're not feeling free. You're not feeling like you're in charge of your time. You're just like kind of desperately seeking that kind of connection rather than feeling like, no, okay, I
mm,
have a gift and I'm there to offer it and I'm there to share it and what really makes sense.
Which really does, I think, require some awareness of one's own just value, like connecting to your value. That
Yeah.
yes, this that I do have something to offer. I'm curious too, just from your perspective, what do you think is making the transition challenging for many people in terms of whether it's in dating, in the context of dating, or in the context of just socializing, going from the virtual to the in-person? Like, what do
Mhm.
you think makes that harder, other than, just getting out of our comfort zone?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a nervous system element to it
Hmm.
where we have been, like used now for a year and a half to just kind of protect ourselves and to be more in a cocooning state. So,
Mm.
you know, to go back out there just kind of provides so much more stimulation, more physical stimulation. And then our nervous system has to adapt again to like filtering more stimuli and
That's a good
really
point.
making decisions like, okay, what do I let in? What do I keep at a distance? Like, there's more decision making processes that we have to do. Like, it does require a lot of energy from us.
It's a good point. So yeah, what are you telling people or offering to people that you work with in terms of navigating their own nervous systems as they enter back out?
Yeah, I mean, self care, really taking care of your body to the T is number one. Number two is having good boundaries with people, but also really kind
Mm,
of reminding yourself of your intention. Like, why am I wanting to connect with this person or that person right now? Like, kind of staying in
mm,
alignment with what you're trying to create with your life. And how does
that's
this interaction or that interaction fit into it? And that can give
mm,
you a lot of strength and resilience.
true. Yeah, the intentionality aspect instead of just saying yes to everything or saying no to everything, right? Helping yourself to realign. Why am I showing up to this engagement? Not from yeah, not from like a transactional perspective, but from a like again, like bringing the gifts, or like if it's important to you to grow your social network, or if it's important to you to take more risks socially, whatever that the why is, or even just, let's use the example of dating, like just getting yourself used to connecting with people in person again. Like that's a good reason as well, is just
Mhm.
like being able to enjoy that experience.
Yeah. And I think also like, and that's especially relevant for the context of dating, is like taking risks and being vulnerable and being really authentic and being
Hmm.
able to name when we are feeling awkward. Like, I think it can dissolve so much of that awkwardness when we just dare to say, like, I'm feeling nervous right now.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, like I find you really attractive, and that makes me a little nervous, and I haven't really connected with a lot of people in a long time. So, I'm sorry, I just want to name that. And
Yeah.
that can dissolve so much of the tension because, if you're with someone who has a capacity for vulnerability, um, then it can be like, oh gosh, thank you for saying that because me too, or, just I want to see the real you. And when you think about it too, like social awkwardness is a feeling like I can't be authentic. Like my authentic self, my authentic
Mm.
expression will not be received. So really the antidote to that is to be vulnerable and to be authentic anyways.
So true. And I think this brings up an interesting point. I feel like you and I've talked about like the difference between being open and oversharing versus being like sincerely vulnerable. And I feel like the vulnerability aspect is like saying the thing that you're afraid to say, whereas being open is you're like talking about everything that's happening in your experience. And maybe it's not that scary, but you're just like oversharing for transparency. So how, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like there's a difference between just like, like talking and talking and talking just because you want to like, sometimes that can be a defense mechanism as well. You
Yeah.
just want to be in the role of the transparent person, but you might not really follow your real curiosity. Sometimes like asking a question and actually listening to somebody else can be the most vulnerable thing,
Mm,
rather
true.
than filling the space with chatter.
Such a good point. I guess, yeah, it really does come back to intentionality.
Yeah, and real connection, like really being with the person in the moment and kind of listening to the moment and what wants to be born in it, like rather than having the plan and wanting to control that interaction to dissolve the fear, to dissolve the awkwardness, like
Mm.
no, like kind of jumping into the moment and like what wants to be born right now. Bless you.
Thanks. Yeah, exactly. Being willing to just meet what arises and not have to. I think that's such a beautiful point. And that's really, it's hard to do. I think we've almost been like conditioned to have all the plan A, B, C, D backup plan in conversation because we want, I think it's like under the guise of wanting someone else to feel comfortable, but really it's like we want to feel comfortable and both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there can be like techniques and practices to help, with communication. Like the other day, I was having lunch with a couple of friends, and one of them said, like, hey, let's set intentions for our lunch together,
Love that.
which was so sweet because usually you don't really, you just jump into the conversation and you make small talk. But we each took turns, like saying, like, what do we hope to share and to hear from one another, and that really set the stage for a really wonderful lunch, and we went deep in conversation and we shared from the heart. So that can, it can sound cheesy, but why not? Like why not arrive at your date or your lunch with your friends or your social interactions and set intentions first?
Yeah,
That's
I
kind of
really love that.
vulnerable, and but that really helps just like deepen the level of authenticity for the rest of that interaction.
Yeah, and it also, I think, connects you to yourself. It connects you back to yourself, which I think is almost like sometimes lost in connection. It's like we actually leave ourselves in order to participate, but really what allows for the authenticity is that the connection to self, like what's coming up in my experience. So that, as you said earlier, naming the scarier thing or like the curiosity or the discomfort even, like whatever's there, like what needs to be, yeah, addressed. That's beautiful. What are some, I'm curious if you have any suggestions for places that people can start. Let's say it's a first date in person. What are some intentions that people might even borrow or ponder? Obviously, it has to come from you, but maybe this can spark something.
Yeah. I mean, let's say that I am really just kind of looking for a relationship. I could tell the person, like, hey, like, I just really want to get to know you. And also, I would love for us to just share about the intentions that we have for a relationship and our future visions for life.
Mm.
You know, like
Yeah.
if you're someone who just really doesn't want to spend a ton of time in small talk and you really want to know what the other person's vision for their life is, you know, you can name that. I think it can
Yeah.
also enable just like both people to skip the small talk, or if that's not really what you want to do, you can say like, hey, I just really feel like getting to know you in a freestyle kind of way and share some sweet moments. And you know, like you can, there's no right or wrong intention, but to name your intention is always
Mm.
powerful and it's always connecting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I'm curious too, like, in your exchange with your friends, like what were some of the things that, if you're comfortable sharing, that you named or that someone else named as their intention for the gathering?
Yeah. Well, my friend initially said like, oh, I really want to hear about what you've experienced in the last month, you know, because I've lost my mom
Mm.
and that was a big life event.
Yeah.
So he just wanted to name right away that this was something he was curious about and wanted to create space for. And
Mm.
so I responded to that and I said like, yeah, I'll be super happy to share. Thank you for inviting that into the space. And I also don't want it to be just about me. I know that you just had a breakup, you know, with your girlfriend, and I really feel curious about that. And if you feel inclined to share, I want to also invite that into the space. And then our other friend said, like, okay, like, here's my share, here's how I feel about this. And so we were able to kind of start with what we were most curious about, what we were most eager about hearing about and
Mm.
sharing together.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I love that. It's like it gives other, when you name your own curiosity about a person, it gives them permission too to like go there. Because I think a lot of people feel uncomfortable taking up space with sharing facets of their lives, especially with good friends. I think it's like if
Yeah.
you know something's going on, invite it. I think especially when it comes to big life milestones like death and breakups and like things
Hmm.
that are harder to navigate. I think people are less comfortable asking. So
Right.
yeah.
I mean, curiosity is something I talk so much about with my clients because that's
Mm.
usually like what really creates the difference between having a really good date or good social experience, interaction, or having one that's boring. Like, if you can really connect with your own genuine curiosity about somebody else and set that as your intention, then you're going to have fun. Like, our curiosity
Mm.
is kind of our antennas in the world as we navigate, you know, the world. And oftentimes, we know with childhood experiences and trauma, we get disconnected from that.
Mm.
We are told, you know, or we get the message from the world like, okay, my curiosity is not welcome and I can't really follow my gut feeling anymore. But if we
Yeah.
learn to follow it again, then that's really where life becomes magical and connections become really authentic.
So true. I think too, how with Hum Hum we talk about like, does a connection feel complete or incomplete? It's making me kind of think about like in the instance of incompletion, I often find there's more curiosity. Like, I want to know about this person. I want to hear them talk about X, Y, and Z. And like, there's like a thirst to just like really understand and know and connect and um, turn all the rocks over. It's just like, I just want to understand everything, Maybe that's my Gemini nature. But I think like sometimes that incompletion, you're just like, I want to see you. Like, I really want to see you as a person. And I really think it is generous to have that, but it's not like we have to evoke that. It's so natural. It's like such a natural, like kids are so curious. They ask you all the questions, even if you're like, oh, please don't ask that. You're getting asked. You are getting asked the thing you don't
Yes.
want to answer. So yeah.
That is so true. Yeah, I heard a statistic like children like ask like 10,000 questions a day or something in average. I mean, I don't know if it's 10,000, but it's like very high number. And then adults by the time they're 18, they ask like 15. Like it's ridiculous like the reduction in curiosity that we go through. And that's really a
Yeah.
reduction of our life force.
So true. Exactly. Because I think, it gets also back to like feeling safe in a false sense of certainty. And sometimes we need to be more exposed or uncertain, uncomfortable to really bring that life force back in. Because as soon as we get into this space of thinking we know, we stop asking questions and then we just kind of coast and we miss these really juicy moments of like whether it's connection or appreciation or understanding or even just like expanding and learning. And I think, that's where we run into trouble is like when we really want to feel safer. It's almost like curiosity requires a certain level of vulnerability because you have to acknowledge that you don't know, that you have questions. And it feels good and also uncomfortable kind of at the same time in some
Yeah.
instances.
Oh my God, that is so true. And, to bring it back to romantic relationships, like when you think about getting into a stable, committed relationship, then oftentimes the fear or, like the problem that occurs first is like loss of curiosity about the other person.
So true.
Like
Yeah.
what happens after a few
Yeah.
years of being with someone if you don't like cultivate the curiosity or if you don't like have a natural curiosity for that person, you start thinking that you know them. You're like, oh, I know you. You're boring by now.
Right. We almost become desensitized to each other. And I think it's like if we can reconnect to the fact that like we are constantly changing, then there's room to acknowledge and remember that so is literally everyone else in your life. And so like let them out of their boxes, get curious. Yeah.
Right. And usually what actually kind of precedes that loss of curiosity is a level of hurt. Is
Mm,
like, oh, you've done this thing to make me feel unloved. So then I'm gonna start putting you in a box. I'm gonna start like this kind of movement towards you and towards knowing more of you because you're no longer really safe.
I think this ties so much back to feeling like we need to regain a sense of control through certainty. So the more we can feel certain about a person, the
Hmm.
more we can control our experience with them and it keeps us safe, but then we actually miss out on the opportunities to connect. And I think that that's exactly it. It's like we lose the curiosity when we lose the willingness to be vulnerable, when we lose the willingness to not know. And it does require like you have to give up control a little bit because
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
and you have to
true.
face the points of pain that were just invoked, like if
Mm,
you have felt hurt, if you went into this uncomfortable place, like, if you can be curious about that
yeah.
and
Oh
say like, hey,
yeah.
I'm worth that. I'm worth being curious about myself and my own emotional reactions. And I don't want to just be in a prison of my own making because I don't want to feel those points of pain and discomfort. Then you can actually heal
Mm,
and keep being in contact with this other person who you perceive might have hurt you,
mm.
but really they just kind of pushed the wrong button because they were, clumsy or whatever.
I think the phrase a prison of my own making is so accurate. And I think it's like, on one hand, it's like the irony of we're trying to keep ourselves safe, right? So we put ourselves in this little box and then we feel
Mhm.
really unhappy. And it's like, and I think that's why the easy answer for a lot of people is just peace out, like leave, try something else. When in actuality, it's like, of course, there's certain circumstances where that makes sense. I'm not saying
Yeah.
never leave, but it's more like in the instances where we're doing it as a protective mechanism and unwilling to really look at ourselves again. So,
Right, right. It's like, oh yeah, like I don't want that button pushed again. Like it's too painful. I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to understand it and have
mm,
compassion for it. It's
yeah.
so, I mean, it's amazing when, like I see couples who are together for a long time and are able to go there, and really, deal with those buttons and really like befriend their pain, befriend the parts of them that were ostracized and use their relationships to reintegrate them.
Mm, mm,
That's freaking magic. And that's just like,
that's
that's the
beautiful.
most healing
Yeah,
experience you can have.
that is. And I think it requires immense accountability on both people's parts to like really have that level of willingness to just like, okay, I'm gonna own my stuff, like you own your stuff, and then let's talk about it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely evolutionary relationship level, next level stuff. It's Mm.
Yeah. So I guess coming to back to our, core topic of social awkwardness, anything else you want to say on the topic before we close?
Hmm. Well, just that, like it might never be possible to totally eradicate social awkwardness. I think that, we're all so deeply socialized into fear
Oh,
that, like to think, oh, I just need to heal my own social awkwardness 100% before I connect with people is unrealistic, and that can become
yeah.
another protective mechanism. So I just want to tell, and advise everyone to not let it control you. Like it might always be there. Like I can feel my own social awkwardness in the background in this moment, even though I love you and I love this conversation and I don't feel very awkward, but it's like there's still a flavor of it, but
Mm,
I'm not letting it stop me from connecting and from putting myself out there and sharing my gifts to the extent of my ability. So
yeah.
what you do in spite of social awkwardness is
Ooh.
really kind of what counts.
That's a good one. If people can start to track, like, where were you brave? Where were you brave this week? And like, because I think you're right. You don't have to get rid of it. You just have to become familiar with it. And then it doesn't have that same hold. And knowing kind of um, the things that like get you, that make you slip into it. Like I was thinking, we were talking earlier about attraction, how that could be so uncomfortable as a feeling because we're not really taught like what do you do with that, right? We've seen the hyper like, masculine approach of what to do with attraction, which like doesn't always, serve us. And then we've got the like, oh, I'm just gonna pretend it's not there and like stuff it down. And that's also like not great. And so it's like, what what do you do when there's attraction in the field or in present? And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be named and sometimes it doesn't. But just I think even like I'm talking about in a date context, like, and maybe not, right? In a surprising circumstance where you're like, well, that's weird that that's here, but here it is. Learning how to acknowledge that experience and like integrate it. I'm curious your thoughts on this and if there are any other like big ones, besides attraction that might be like
Yeah.
triggers for social awkwardness.
I just got the image of public speaking, how that's such a big fear for many people. And one of the most classic advices for that is to imagine people naked or in their underwear in the
Mm,
audience. And
mm,
that
mm,
basically means like remember other people's vulnerability.
mm.
Like to not get caught in the illusion that, oh, I'm the only one who's nervous here.
Yeah, that's good. That's so good. Yeah, exactly. Remembering each other's like humanness.
Exactly. So if we can do that with dating, even just if you're swiping on Tinder and you're like, oh, everyone is so cool, everyone is so hot, they're not gonna like me, or whatever judgment you might have, to just know, like connect to people's humanity and send them love and send them compassion because everyone is freaking out.
Everyone's freaking out. It's so true. Everyone is freaking out. Just want to like, oh man, just everyone just like
Nobody's
hug each
normal.
other. It's okay. Yeah. It's so true.
Nobody's cool.
Right? We're all,
Everyone is a little kid trying to get, reassurance and to be loved. So
oh my God.
remember that and bring your love out there and you'll have a great time.
So true. That's beautiful. So, Marie, if someone wants to do some one-on-one work with you or enroll in any of the programs that you have going on, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Instagram at love_insight_dating, and my website is loveinsight-dating.com. And I do 30-minute introductory sessions for free for anyone who just wants to chat and explore my work and explore potential coaching relationships. So I look
Awesome.
forward to meeting folks.
Yes, and I'm gonna post obviously your handle in the IG Live notes, and feel free to DM Marie directly to connect. And Marie's amazing, and we love working with you. So thank you so much for bringing and going, rising above your own social awkwardness to show up and do this with us.
Oh man, that was the best thing. Like that's really I think the best journey that I've taken in my life, is that journey from separation to connection.
Ooh, that's so good. I feel like
There's
that.
nothing more important.
Yeah, exactly. And it starts with just being willing to be a little bit uncomfortable each time.
Hmm. Exactly.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who tuned in and catch the replay if you only saw the end. It'll be on our IGTV. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.